And this is a continuation of Lesson 3. This is video clip 2, and in this clip we're going to be talking about the Walt Disney Corporation as a case study of how the Walt Disney Company went from actually being a company to being a global conglomeration. Hopefully you started off by watching the video essay that I provided for you in the list of examples and video clips. This was a video essay that I believe was actually put together by a student, not one of my students. I did find it on YouTube and tracked the facts that she presented, and they track pretty accurately. She basically went over most of what is in the book in our textbook from, I believe it's 425 to 428, kind of giving a history of the Walt Disney Company. And I want to pull out some key points from this for you to keep in mind as we think of the possible benefits and ramifications of media consolidation. The first thing that we should point out is that when Disney was in the process of acquiring new intellectual property and buying other companies, beginning with most notably ABC, then Pixar, then Marvel and Lucasfilm, one of the reasons that they were able to avoid being scrutinized for possibly being a monopoly is that they have diversified their types of entertainment that they provide. So as this slide here outlines, yes, they are a provider of media content and media content production, but they also have a large piece of their business be merchandise and merchandising, and we see things in the video such as the Disney store and all of the content that you can represent through the products that you buy. I, on my little bookcase, have figures of Mickey Mouse and figures of the Black Widow from Marvel and figures from Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think I have any Pixar up, but you can buy things, tangible things, and that is separate from the media content production. And then finally, you have all of the Walt Disney resorts that are around the world, as well as travel services such as the Walt Disney Cruise Line. So that keeps them from being thought of as a media monopoly. So they kind of dodge a bullet there, legally speaking. Now, when they were in the process of purchasing ABC, one of the reasons that they were able to do that Congress let them, and how they were able to circumvent antitrust laws, was that at the time they had not yet purchased a distribution service. All right, so notably, they didn't own any of the cable companies to deliver their content in the United States. Now, recent news has come out that they are planning to roll out their own streaming service, which is a distribution service of their own content. That's supposed to happen sometime in 2019, and you'll be seeing in the months ahead that Disney's going to be starting to pull their Disney movies and their Star Wars properties and whatnot from Netflix, because that's going to be considered a competing service. It's no longer going to be considered a distribution partner. So it'll be interesting to see if Congress has anything to say about that. My guess, and this is speculation, my guess is that Congress will allow this, and it will not be a problem for Disney to start their own streaming service. But that means that if we want Disney properties, we're going to have to not only subscribe to Netflix and Amazon and Hulu if we're cord cutters, but we're also going to then have to subscribe to Disney to get any kind of Disney-owned content. Now, when Congress is overseeing possible purchases and mergers of large corporations, they're looking to see how that purchase might support the public good, or the legal term is serve the public interest. or if it's something that's done just to maximize profits for one company. And so Bob Iger, who's in charge of Disney, says that by purchasing this other companies, it enables them to produce even more quality content. But there's no specific definition behind quality content, and that means different things to different organizations. And we'll talk about that throughout the semester. And then finally, the way that Disney has chosen to define quality content is by stating that it is making every attempt to provide a space for minority voices in mainstream content development. So that's not just representation on screen, but also representation behind the scenes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Now, there was a major study done out of the University of California's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, which is one of the most prestigious communication departments at any university in the United States. They did a comprehensive study on visibility and inclusion in the entertainment industry, and it kind of operates as a report card. And among the broadcast networks, and again, that's ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and the CW, of all those five, the Walt Disney Company, with it owning ABC, scored the highest in a tie with the CW for inclusion of women, LGBT people, and underrepresented racial and ethnic groups among the other broadcast networks. And it actually extended out to some of the smaller cable networks too, because Disney also owns Freeform, they own the Disney Channel, they own Disney XD, and all those were included in that study as well. So for Disney, the way they are defining quality content and saying that they're serving the public interest is by having a well-promoted commitment to inclusion of minority groups on screen and behind the scenes in roles such as writers, content creators, and directors. And so this extends to the on-camera representation, and here is just a little collage I made of the diversity that's present on ABC, Freeform, and the Disney Channel, where you see representations of women, people of color, most notably African Americans, people of Asian descent, and people of Latino descent. You also see representation of people with physical disabilities, and you see gay and lesbian folks being represented in the content that ABC, Freeform, and the Disney channels put out. Now, they also, behind the scenes, have an initiative to cultivate diverse voices behind the scenes. And in recent years, you've seen 3 shows that have had varying degrees of success, praise, and criticism come out of the ABC development offices. Now, the most successful of these 3 is the sitcom called Blackish, which has been nominated for an Emmy, and it is a sitcom that tackles contemporary social issues that are particularly relevant to the Black experience in America. It also features a multi-generational cast, so you can see how society's issues are perceived and dealt with differently depending on whether or not you're a young person, an adult, or an elder adult. This show is also run by an African-American showrunner named Kenya Barris. So you have an African-American voice overseeing the way these stories are cultivated and told, and making sure that they have a sense of authenticity. Now, this is in contrast to a show called Fresh Off the Boat, which is still doing pretty well in the ratings, and it's based off of a memoir by a food personality named Eddie Huang, and he sold his memoir and the rights to make his memoir into a sitcom, but he doesn't have any direct power on how ABC makes this show that's based on his life. He has since denounced the show, saying that it doesn't represent him, nor does it represent Asian Americans, and the characters were all either sanitized, neutered, or exoticized for ratings purposes. Now, this show doesn't have a showrunner, executive producer behind the scenes who's of Asian descent. Um, and that might be some of the problems with the sense of authenticity and representation, at least from the perspective of the person it's based off of. Now, the final show, Cristela, also came out of this diversity initiative that the other two shows came from. It only lasted a few episodes. It was based off of the stand-up comedy of a young woman named Cristela Alonzo. She was the star of the show. Much of the scripts were based off of her stand-up, but she didn't actually get to write the show, nor was she in charge of it in any way. It was, if you see there in the picture here, it was actually a white man who was in charge of the show. She had very little voice in how the show ended up being made. There was some criticism of it being containing a lot of racist stereotypes, and the jokes were making fun of Latino people than enjoying the comedy of and with Latino people. And nonetheless, it did not do well in the ratings and did not even get a full season run. So what we're going to do is we're going to end here. I want you to think about this, and I want you to think about the ideas of quality content and inclusivity, because as you'll see in the next case study in the next clip, one of the major issues that a company has to face when they're trying to get congressional approval to purchase another large company is this issue of diversity behind the scenes and on camera as well. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about Comcast and NBC.